The landscape of Lakes Country is changing, partly due to the new power lines along the I-94 corridor, and partly because of the big wind generators that have been going up. To learn more about wind energy, we went to the experts at Otter Tail Power.
A megawatt is a unit of measure of energy. For a typical homeowner, you will be purchasing kilowatts of energy, which is 1,000 kilowatts per megawatt. A typical house will have maybe 800 or 900 kilowatts a month of energy usage. Utilities typically buy and sell energy at the megawatt level, millions of watts versus thousands of watts. We have roughly 138 megawatts of wind that we own, and then we have a 62.4 megawatt power purchase agreement where we don't own the farm itself, but we get all of the energy off of the wind farm. And we have another 19.5 megawatt plant and a 21 megawatt plant. If you look at our total wind energy, megawatt hours, now that's not capacity, but that's total megawatt hours, we have roughly 19 to 20% of our load is being served with wind energy. All of the wind farms that we have built are in North Dakota. And North Dakota wind is actually a very, very good wind resource. A lot of people call it the Saudi Arabia of wind. It's very homogeneous wind. You don't have a lot of gusts, and the topology of the ground makes it much easier on the wind turbines in order to actually produce the wind. There's not as much torque on the blades. There's not as much starting and stopping. And so that's one of the reasons why North Dakota is a very good place for wind in the renewable business. All of our wind farms have about 45% net capacity factor versus around the region, you have a lot of farms outside of North Dakota that are in the 30 to 35%. Some of them are in the 25%. And what's important about this is, as we know, wind's not blowing all the time. So sometimes these wind turbines are blowing at 100%, sometimes they're not blowing at all. Sometimes they're blowing somewhere in between. But the 45% net capacity factor means we're getting 45% of the capacity all of the time on average, versus everyone else who's getting, outside of North Dakota, about 30 to 35%. And that's a big difference when it comes to cost of energy to our customers.
One of my main duties is to be the interconnection coordinator for generators that want to tie onto our system, both distribution, which is the residential voltage, and larger voltage transmission lines for large wind farms. So I help shepherd them through the process and get the necessary agreements in place for them to produce power. There's usually two main reasons that they would decide to install in a generator. One is for an investment and to reduce their costs, but most often the ones that are successful are those that want to do it just to better the environment. Investments gets to be a little bit challenging, and it's a lot more involved to make sure they're making a good investment because there's lots of moving parts. The first general advice that I would say is determine why you want to do your project. Is it for an investment to get a return, or is it for the environment? Once you make that decision, then it helps steer the direction. The next key thing will be, what size do you want to install? We have generations that interconnect to us anywhere from 1 kW, which is very small, and that's usually a solar one, to a very large project. It has to be below 10 megawatts. They're usually more in the 40 kilowatt range is what's interconnecting to our system. The interconnection process, we feel, is pretty quick, but paperwork always takes time, and it can take anywhere from 3 months to 9 months to get through the study phase and the agreements in place. So make sure you're thinking things through and timing before ordering equipment and getting installed.
Dr. Harlan Jacobson built a wind turbine next to his home in rural Ashby.
Well, when we purchased this thing, I was thinking of getting a little one for down at the lake for the camper. And then I got this letter in the mail, and they had something big, and they thought I should listen to his sales pitch. I wasn't interested, but when it came out, I got interested. It's a 40 kW turbine, which produces pretty good electricity at a retail rate. So that's why I bought this. Now, the little one down at the lake would have done the same thing too, but that would have been just for personal use. And this is something that I can sell back to the power company. I do believe in wind energy and solar energy, so it satisfies what we were after. Now that it's working, we just accept that there is noise out there, and you can probably hear it now. The faster the wind, the more the noise is, and when it's putting out substantial current, why, it makes noise. And we don't mind it. It's kind of like going to the orchestra and hearing it generating some money, you know, so it's, we like it. And I think we're now at the point where it's probably going to be profitable. The power company rates are going up, and they're supposed to go up substantially, so it's doing what it's supposed to do.
From an environmental standpoint, the nice thing about wind is that it's truly a renewable source. As long as we have wind, we will have wind energy. And so you're not using a finite source of fuel. So that is really what makes wind energy a very viable option for the people in North Dakota and for everyone else. The main drawback to wind is that it's an intermittent resource. So as an electric utility, we're trying to serve our customers at all times whenever they need the power. And so it's very important that people understand that wind is a very good source of megawatt hours with a zero cost of energy when the wind is blowing. But when people flip on the light switch, they expect energy to be there. And what you have to understand is these are not base load units. Base load units are coal, gas, nuclear. We need those in order to have the reliability of the system and in order to have, give people power when they want it. Solar and wind are very good options to supplement that when the energy source is available.